At Sheffield Metals and the Metal Roofing Channel, we're always going to promote using a professional installation contractor when it comes to installing your metal roof. However, we do realize that there is the do-it-yourself community out there that is looking at taking on the challenge themselves. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the challenges you might face along the way if you do decide to do it yourself.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Metal Roofing Channel. Welcome to Q&A Mondays and part 2 of Can You DIY a Standing Seam Metal Roof Install? This video is all about pros and cons if you actually do the install and you're looking up at your finished roof. What are the pros and cons of you now owning that roof installation? We've said that it is possible, absolutely. But I think with what we discussed, it's gonna be an uphill battle for even an enthusiastic homeowner with some skills, right? So let's say that they make it happen and they are able to install the roof for themselves. Let's talk about pros and cons of going that route. So Let's talk pros first. First of all, I'm saving the cost of labor, overhead, and profit that I would otherwise be paying to a roofing company.
Without a doubt. You just pocketed yourself some money. I will say you probably did pay more for the materials. You did have to buy the tools, but you didn't have to pay for the labor. So, without a doubt, you did save some money, even with that, probably the investment of the tools and things like that. And not to mention, listen, pat yourself on the back. You should have a real good sense of accomplishment and some bragging rights in the neighborhood, right? Well, those are all great things. And honestly, you know how every part and piece of your roof is done, And the one thing I will say I notice with homeowners that are successful and that they do it right, they do a lot of secondary protection where a regular roofing contractor might not, just because they're like, you know what, I want to really make sure this area is good to go. And is it overkill? Probably more times than not, but you do know those vulnerable areas of your roof and you know exactly how it was installed. So You do have that peace of mind as well.
100%. So on the flip side, there's some cons as well. If I complete the project, I'm successful with it, what are some cons when I'm sitting there looking at my roof that I wouldn't otherwise have if I hired someone?
If you do have a problem with your roof, you don't have anybody that you can call. So, that's probably the biggest con, right? You are your workmanship warranty. There's nobody to call and say, hey, I'm having a problem. You are the problem solver now. So that's probably the biggest one. Other cons, again, really the time frame. You will have to have some time to devote for the project. If you live in an area that snows, give yourself enough time to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish, and then a really big buffer factor. You have to keep your roof dry until you get the panel system on. So depending on what your roof looks like and things like that, I have 4 hours to devote to this today. The first half hour might be taken off any waterproofing that I have externally outside of the dry-in. The last hour might be putting it back on. I could put 2.5 hours worth of work to actually getting things done today. All that kind of comes into play. Unless it's a very simple roof, you are not going to be as fast as a roofing contractor, period. That's probably the biggest one. A roofing contractor, it might take a week to do your job. Yours might go into months with an S. You're talking about materials and things like that. If you do run short, damage, misinstall something, you have to have a backup plan for replacing those materials. And then honestly, you do say, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna go for it. I would strongly suggest having a backup plan if you start it and you realize, man, this isn't for me. Not just a backup plan to get your roof installed by somebody else, but also the financial backup plan to not be left with part of a roof and now I can't afford a roofing contractor. What am I going to do? That's probably the worst case scenario to me, is if I decided to take it on, I have X amount of dollars and I'm using that entire budget. If I don't complete it or can't complete it, I have no means to get back to good.
Yeah, that's good advice, because I just sunk that money in the material. Not to mention that a lot of times roofing contractors have lead times that are weeks or months out. So if I'm like, I really can't do this, and I call my roofing contractors that are in the area and they're like, we can get to you in 3 months, and I'm sitting with a half-done roof.
Right, and you might end up, and this isn't trying to scare anybody or, to downplay, trying to do it yourself if that's what you really want to do. But it might end up costing you more because roofing contractors don't like to come in and do work after other roofing contractors. They want to start the job and finish the job because they don't want to be responsible for anything that they didn't do that might already be done.
Yeah.
Prepare for that as well. You know, might have a hard time finding a contractor willing to do it after you start.
For sure. All right, well, thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate the advice. So, I mean, the bottom line is, yes, you can do it. There's a ton to think about. So think long and hard and make sure that you have a plan in place. If you want to learn more about metal roofing installation, you can check out our channel at the Metal Roofing Channel. Subscribe here on YouTube or visit us at SheffieldMetals.com. Comment down below with any questions. As always, I'm Thad Barnett. We'll catch you next time.